in Sioux City, Iowa on August 1st, 1951, Tommy Richard Bolin was arguably one of the best guitarists to find a home in the Colorado music scene of the 1970s. When Bolin died of a heroin overdose in 1976, he was on a career path that would have taken him to iconic rock star status, with a style that incorporated jazz fusion, rock, and elements of pop.
The first time I met Tommy, it was opening night of my club, Tulagi's nightclub, and I booked Zephyr, of which he was the young guitar player in David Gibbons' band. Tommy, this kid guitar player, just knocked my socks off.
His credits included 2 albums with the band Zephyr, 2 solo albums, 2 albums with Joe Walsh's former band, the James Gang, and collaborations with jazz drummer Billy Cobham on his seminal album, Spectrum, and replacing Ritchie Blackmore in the #1 psychedelic rock band of the late 60s, Deep Purple. What is lesser known is the work he did with other well-known guitarists like Jeff Beck and Albert King, and musicians in bands like Energy and Tommy Bolin's Dreamers, including Brother Johnny, a member of Black Oak, Arkansas for 30 years.
My first hand of Tommy was never his singing, it was never his writing, because when we were growing up together, he didn't do much of either one. A lot of people really love his voice, his lyrics, so a lot of people take it a lot of different ways.
It all began even before he took up the guitar at age 11. Tommy's father, Rich, took him to see Elvis Presley when he was only 5, and according to his brother, later had a dream that Tommy would follow in Elvis's footsteps. Tommy began studying guitar and lap steel guitar at Flood Music in Sioux City. But he could play just about anything by ear, including jazz and riffs from the Ventures, Beatles, and Rolling Stones. In Iowa, he played with the band Miserless before he was asked to join Denny and the Triumphs, later called A Patch of Blue. Tommy came to Colorado on a one-way bus ticket in 1967 after his high school twice suspended him for hair that was just too long. After a jam session at the Buff Room on the Hill in Boulder, singer Candy and her husband David Gibbons joined forces with keyboard and flautist John Ferris and Tommy to form Colorado's first breakout 70s rock act, Zephyr. With the addition of Robbie Chamberlain on drums, Zephyr began writing originals and playing at the Sink in Boulder, managed by Chuck Morris. Also CU's Glenn Miller Ballroom opening for John Mayall, Mackey Auditorium with Tim Leary, Reed's Ranch with the Grateful Dead, and various shows around the state. Of particular note was playing the Denver Pop Festival, where they played on 2 nights. One night with Jimi Hendrix. Zephyr recorded their first self-titled album in 1969 in Los Angeles for ABC's Probe Records, doing shows that included spots with Led Zeppelin, Leslie West Mountain, Mad Dogs and the Englishmen, Spirit, Fleetwood Mac, and pretty much every top group of the era. Their second album, Going Back to Colorado, came out in 1971 on Warner Brothers Records. It was at that point that Zephyr's manager, Colorado promoter Barry Fay, turned his attention to Bolin's career, and Tommy left Zephyr to begin his own journey. In 1973, Bolin joined the James Gang, whose founding member was Joe Walsh.
My understanding is he saw Tommy play, I think at Tulagi's, called the other 2 guys, they had broken up, the James Gang, and said, from what I know, there's a kid who's a better guitar player than me. This is Joe Walsh talking. You might think about auditioning him and reform the band. And of course, he auditioned, became the lead singer, guitar player, and they made 2 more albums, James Gang Bang and James Gang Miami. And he brought the band back, and he was great. And then left. You know, he always wanted to have his own band.
The year Bolin recorded his first solo album, Teaser, members of the band Deep Purple approached Tommy to take over the lead guitar chair. Bolin not only stepped in for Ritchie Blackmore, he wrote 7 of the 9 tracks on their 1975 album, Taste the Band. After a difficult world tour, where Bolin's and other band members' drug use detracted from the band's performances, Bolin recorded and released Private Eyes on CBS Records. The album was released on September of 1976, and Bolin began touring to support the record.
Going on the road with Tommy Bolin was great. Reggie McBride on bass, Norma Jean Bell on sax from Detroit, who'd also worked with Mahavishnu Orchestra. Of course, Reggie McBride had done some work with Stevie Wonder and Stevie's recordings. On organ, the phenomenal genius of Mark Stein from Vanilla Fudge, who was your big inspiration to me with that music. And then, of course, Tommy and myself. Tommy was really great until we went to New York, and we played the place I loved, which is called The Bottom Line. And in this place, Tommy couldn't hardly stand up.
Second album I thought was brand new and just came out, and Tommy got the Jeff Beck national tour and overdosed and died on the first night of the tour in Miami. I'll never forget, I got a call from Faye about midnight, and he had just gotten a call from Miami that Tommy had overdosed and died. And I went with Barry to the funeral on the coldest snowy night in Sioux City. So sad, so sad. He had the world in front of him. And it's funny, he was such a sweetheart and such a sweet guy, but he had a drug problem, and it killed him.
By all accounts, things were going really well for his career. Unfortunately, in his final interview in Miami, recorded the night that he died, Tommy said, "Don't worry about me. I'm going to be around for a long time." What is probably most telling about Tommy's legacy is the number of guitarists who acknowledge him as an inspiration in their own playing. From Warren Haynes of Government Mule, who produced one of 2 tribute albums to Bolin, to blues legends Joe Bonamassa and Sonny Landreth, Tommy's influence continues to outlive his all too brief time in the spotlight. The Colorado Music Hall of Fame, presented by Comfort Dental, is proud and honored to induct Tommy Bolin into the Colorado Music Hall of Fame as part of the Going Back to Colorado class of 2019.